time now.
We're live.
3, 2, 1. All right. Nick, thank you for being here, man. Nick, he introduced himself, but let's do an intro again. We'll go around. Todd Louie, I'm with the Nashville VMUG. I'm one of the leaders here. Justin's one of the leaders. Vince is one of the leaders. But ask questions to anybody. That's why we're all here. Again, go back and forth, bounce off of each other. Nick, what's your actual position? And besides, you can't say awesome, so what is it?
So I'm an integration architect.
Integration architect. So what exactly is an integration architect?
It's actually kind of hard to explain. I play in a lab, a decent-sized lab all day. I install VMware products and make sure that they're working nicely together and validating the way that we put them together. Because there's a million different settings and a million different features that could be configured. Which ones work together to achieve a business outcome? That's kind of what I do. It's very hard to describe.
So that makes sense to everybody,
right? Let me go back and just start with one of the things that I'd like to elaborate on, just for a few minutes from now. I'd like to open the floor to questions, comments. I'd like to hear your stories as well. I want to just give a bit more of an explanation about what happened to me between when I left high school and when I moved to Melbourne, working for a company of a decent size. So I left high school knowing that university wasn't for me. Uni for me, and we don't call it college in Australia, it's all uni. So, just to give you some terminology there, I didn't want to go to uni because they had 2 courses. I didn't want to be a programmer, and I didn't really care so much about the business side of things, so Infosys wasn't for me. So like, okay, what do I do? So I looked up, at the time, I knew that I was interested in Microsoft and Cisco certs. So I went to what is called TAFE, which is a vocational education training thing. And they did Cisco NetAcad, which is the CCNA certification, and I did kind of night courses once. Well, it was every Tuesday night. I drove for like an hour to go to this tech college that they called, and went there and did the Cisco course with an instructor every Tuesday night. And then while I was doing that during my day job, I was also trying to learn as much as I could for Microsoft certification for the MCP. So I was kind of trying to go those 2 certification routes while I was doing my day job. There was no courses at uni that were related to anything that I wanted to do in terms of hands-on tech. I want to administer systems, know how this software works, understand how users interact with each other, know how to put all these things together, understand how to build these systems from the ground up. There wasn't anything at uni that was appropriate. However, I knew that just coming out of high school, the basics that you learn are not enough. I didn't learn anything about Cisco or Microsoft. I learned how to touch type, and I learned how to program in BASIC, and some of those fundamentals that just don't have any relevance in being a hands-on IT administrator, architect, help desk operator, whatever it is that you want to end up doing. It wasn't relevant at all. So I looked around and tried to find something that was relevant. I still haven't been to uni. I don't plan on going to uni. People are saying if I want to advance in my career, you need to go and get an MBA. No, that's not. I would not use the word that I'd like to use, but because I'm on camera. But there is no way I'm going to do that because I don't see that a university degree, for me personally and my career and what I want to do, will not provide me with something that is not a heck of a lot cheaper in terms of money and time. So if I think about the year that I did my Cisco CCNA, if I had gone down the developer route at uni, I would have spent 3 years at a minimum to learn Java and C. And then I will get out in the real world and still not know how to program a real life application because I don't know the fundamentals of the programming language. Nothing out there was going to teach me what I needed to go into the workforce. That's just my personal opinion. That's my story. And don't let anybody tell you that you have to go to uni to progress because I haven't, don't plan on it, and I'm from a small town, and I just decided that my life was going to be different. It has been. So I'd like to understand where you guys are at, any questions you might have about where you're at in your journey.
So I think I want to kind of piggyback off of what you just said. So the students that are here are in a traditional environment. They're in a career college, where 66% of their curriculum is hands-on. The difference is that they don't take a lot of the courses that don't add value to their education. And so the fact that they are introduced to programming, to databases, to Linux, to networking, to desktop support, that adds a lot of value, because then they could still go and get the certifications, and then a lot of people can't do self-study. So when you talk about getting those certifications, I personally think you need that strong foundation. You need to have a basic understanding before you attempt to do the self-study, because there are a lot of pieces that are missing from the puzzle. And so what I didn't want to have happen is that you guys start thinking, well, I just made a decision to go to school for a year and a half, so does that add value? For the students that are in my program, that are working in the field, that have jobs, I say yes. I say that there is real value, and but I do see the importance of getting the certifications afterwards, because again, that helps you develop a niche, and I tell you guys that all the time.
I think there's a key part that we're missing though, and when he says union, and we're talking about if we were to compare apples to apples, we're talking university versus ITT.
Yeah.
Right. So what we're saying is, and we had this conversation before we came in here, that's why I thought it was very relevant to bring it up, because I myself went with the black mark of ITT. For a very long time, everyone's like, you didn't go to a university. So what? I have way more experience now where I can say, ITT is the college I went to. I'm proud of it. So judge me if you want to, because you went to Vanderbilt. I'm a senior architect and manufacturer. What do you do? So.
Well, in those, how many years were you doing that?
What, ITT or IT? I went to ITT for, I think 4 years trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I took every one of the curriculums that you guys did, because I had no clue what I wanted to do. And John Weil was like, "Well, man, you got to pick something." And I still to this day don't know what I want to do.
I really wish I could tell that story. No, I'm just kidding.
It's an amazing. Yeah, I mean, what you want to do is you want to be successful, right? We're all nerds, right? We all want to know how it works, how to break it, how to fix it, and how to bring it in. And then it's very important. We're both saying the same thing, different regions, right? So yes, I learned so much at ITT, but more from the people, the community, the networking, the heart that came with what I learned at ITT. I wouldn't have got it at Vanderbilt. I got an expensive education, but not the community connections that I gained there. I would not be where I am if it wasn't for Mr. Weil, or ITT.
Who's still there, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
20 plus years.
Yeah.
So aside from the education, taking advantage of these types of experiences, the mentors, the people that are at your door begging you to enhance your educational experience by getting involved in these types of things. I say that all the time, but unless you're here and you're doing it, you don't really understand the importance of it. And it's so important to find a mentor in the industry that can help guide your path.
And we're standing there asking you. No one ever did this. They didn't do it for me. They didn't say, "Hey, you want to come walk in the journey?" Or all of us. I mean, there's guys standing around the room that can tell you amazing stories. Even Vince. Mm-hmm. The last year has been amazing.
It has been.
Just living vicariously through Vince, even with the broken legs. I mean, but that
well,
kind of solidifies it,
you went through a similar entry before I did, so you could particularly relate.
We all have amazing journeys, and it's all, you got to tell the story, because it seems like it's not real. And you guys work while you wait. It's something I heard a long time ago while I was at ITT. You feel like you're just getting through it. You're just getting through it. Don't just get through it, because when you just get through it, what's at the end of that? Where are you going to go? So But I want some of you guys, like Nick said, to tell your story, because we got 2 books, and this is an amazing place to start. Nick, Forward by Scott Lowe. I remember when it said Scott Lowe on there. And have you told them about you and Scott?
I kind of mentioned it this morning. So Scott wrote the previous 2 the earlier editions of this book, and he reached out to the community on Twitter and said, "Hey, I'm looking for somebody to partner with in a writing project." And said we had a couple of discussions on Skype, and he said, "Yeah, I think you're the right person. Actually, it's not just a writing project that I want to collaborate with. I'm actually looking to pass the torch. I don't want to write this anymore." So he wrote the networking chapter of the 5.5 version of this book, and me and some other guys wrote the rest. And it was something that he wanted to pay it forward, that model of he was given this by somebody else in the community. Somebody reached out to him, and it made him, who he was a fairly successful blogger at the time, but it certainly improved his notoriety and his job prospects and all that kind of thing. This is the reason that I got moved halfway around the world, just because I said yes to this. I didn't know what I was saying yes to, but I said yes, and that has completely changed my life forever. And the reason that somebody actually asked me if I was interested in doing this is because they knew that I was somewhat involved in the community. It's about, they kind of knew who I was, they didn't really know, but I was passionate, that I was willing to step out and step into something that was outside of what I was willing to do. It wasn't just confining myself to this is what I do.
Every bit of your next few steps is going to be very uncomfortable in what you do. Vince knows that. Jake knows that. Justin is learning that. So that's why we're all here. So we'll start with Vince. I don't know if you guys all know Vince, but just brief, if you can tell your story.
Yeah, I'd love to. There you go.
We're live on Periscope, by the way. Hello. Go ahead, man.
All right, my name is Vincent Brown, and so to preface it a little bit, particularly if anybody watching on Periscope doesn't already know, the Nashville VMUG group had the fantastic idea to start paying it forward and working with college students. And we have the privilege at the Nashville ITT campus that we're the pilot program. They picked our location to be the first place to try this at. Now, we're new. We're still fumbling around trying to see what works. I'm just realizing as I'm learning about DevOps that there's a lot of those principles that apply, that we can consider ourselves a startup and apply some of that continuous development to. Mm-hmm. And so it was my first quarter at school when Kyle came and first talked about this group, and I'd been dabbling, and I'd just begun dabbling with desktop virtualization at home, so I was already interested. And it's been a life-changing journey along the way. At one of our last big Nashville meetings, our Converge meeting, they had a contest. The grand prize was a trip to VMworld in San Francisco. And as yet another blessing to me, I won that. And that was another life-changing trip. It was like drinking from a fire hose. And I met a lot of great people there, made some contacts. Pluralsight in particular, who has just come on as one of the sponsors. They're helping out with a lot of the education. And Nick, as a writer, there's not a lot out there for the beginner level yet on virtualization. Plenty of material for people who are coming in already at the sysadmin level, but going from total newbie to a point where the rest of the material even starts to become understandable. There's a gap that I'll ask you and any other author listening to help us fill. Right now, Pluralsight is doing a good job of that so far. So I'm coming into this kind of learning virtualization myself and sharing what I'm learning with my peers at school. We're all coming in at different levels. We all have different time availability. most of us are already juggling work, school, and family, and then this is one more thing to add to it, but a lot of us see that it's a worthwhile thing to add to it. And it's something that, whether we go into virtualization specifically as a career, whether we go into programming, whether we go into networking, security, being a assistant admin, virtualization is changing all those other fields as well. And the better we learn it, the more it's going to help us with that journey. I'd like to throw one more thing into the earlier topic about being self-taught versus going to a school, and that can be both and, not necessarily either or. Yeah. And I was self-taught for years. Largely, I've just been a nerd for a long time. I've been interested in computers, and well before I even considered working in IT, I'd be at home dabbling in Linux or just learning whatever interested me. And so what I found in being self-taught is you're following your own rabbit trails, and you might get to an expert level in one area, and you might be missing a basic fundamental in another area. And so when I come to ITT, there'd be things in class that maybe I already know to some degree, or it's already familiar to me, but then it also fills in some of those gaps, and I come out at the end with, at the very least, a minimum baseline established that I can continue to build on from any other area. And then once we get out, if we're wise, we know that the learning isn't over. That you continue with certifications, or you continue with whatever it is that you want to learn to get to your next step.
Yeah. I'd like to hear from one of you guys. Where do you see your next steps? Because no matter the conversation, it's more about action items, right? And I'm the worst at it. Like I just said, I'm a squirrel guy myself. If I'm going to run off to the right, if that's where the squirrel's going, I'm going with it. But I got lucky. I had people like John Vile latch onto me and tell me, don't be stupid, don't waste your time, get out to these conferences, meet people, and continue to pay it forward, because you're learning what you're teaching too, right? I'm learning every day. You learn better the more you teach it, though. So how many of you guys are nearing the end of your time at ITT? 3 of you, I know. You're behind the camera, so he raised his hand, but... Alfred, yes, I read your guess. Okay, so stand up for a second if you can, introduce yourself, and talk about what you're doing, man. What's the next step?
I am super excited that this group is available. I started going to school in 2006, and Ms. Jenkins has known me half my life now. No, I'm just kidding. But I had to struggle a lot to keep going. Matter of fact, the last time I just came back, they didn't even say hi. They just bang back. Go over there. You know where to go already. But I'm at the end of my bachelor's right now, and my associates was a struggle. I finally got that. Once I got that, it was all downhill from there. Because, matter of fact, we didn't have anything like this at all when I was going to school. If I had somebody like a John Brown in my lap or whatever, not my lap, but helped me out, and I probably would have ended up different. But I'm glad the way things ended up, because I wouldn't have been there now had I graduated last year when I was supposed to do my bachelor's. So I'm glad that it happened. I'm actually working with Dennis now, trying to do leadership with VMUG now. I work as assistant admin for Park Center, which is a very interesting place to work for. It's a non-profit, so that's the interesting part comes in, where they can't afford to actually keep me there full time. So I'm there part time, working part time as Geek Squad, and then also going to school, and then also with my wife and daughter at home. So juggling a lot of things at one time, and then trying to add more work. So it's as far as where I see myself going, that was kind of in the air. I was still doing what I knew I was good at and what I could do, and I was kind of general like you. The job I have now, they always throw me in the middle of the pool and go down. I'm the only IT guy there. With this, this has actually kind of helped me generalize going, okay, I already knew I wanted security, but now there's virtual security. Oh, that's even better, So it makes it a lot more interesting than what I'm doing now.
The cool part about what every one of you can probably say when you get to his level, because I was, like I said, outside ITT forever, but it's the tenacity that you gain going through what you've gone through.
Right.
And you can work fires to you from somebody in the data center. It's like to Jake and myself, we came up the same way, man. We grinded it out and worked through some pretty difficult times personally.
Right.
So when you're going through a fire in the data center that everyone's, their hair's on fire, the company's coming down, what do we do? You're the calm one. I got this. And trust me, you'll get there. But that's what I love about all you guys. You'll get to that point where you're like, man, this is nothing. So it's awesome that you can stand up and say, you know what, it was a grind, but I got through it.
Oh yeah, it's been very, very rewarding. I look at some of the people that I went to school with originally, and only a handful of them are actually doing something in the field. A lot of them, I don't know if they just lost interest or studied and stuff. I started looking for a job a year into my associates, and by the time I was on my bachelor's, I got the job I have now. So, I started out, I put my time in it in the help desk, and the people that I wanted to smack over the phone that were treating me like trash. I have a doctorate in blah, 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 and I was like, oh yeah, well, I don't even have a degree yet, but apparently you need something from me because you called me.
Did you push the power button? I asked Jake to come in for a couple of minutes so he can tell the story. Tell it how you liked it.
Yeah. So, no formal IT training. That's not entirely true. I've been to 4 different colleges. Everything from diesel mechanics to photography, graphic design, and systems engineering. And didn't complete any of them except for photography. And it was really more of a mandate by my parents. But it was one of those things where through that journey, and I was discovering who I am and what I wanted to do with my life, IT was always kind of there in the background. Right? So growing up, came from a town of about 2,500 people, very, very small. Went to a school that had a build-your-own computer class. Was very interested in that. We built them from scratch, bought all the parts, sanded down the top of the processor, and really terrible things that you shouldn't do. And so I've always kind of, to Nick's story, been that guy that people come to ask technical questions. Still doing technical support for my family. So, but right? Can I get an amen?
You're the computer guy.
Yeah. But basically, I was also in a band. I've done just about everything. But I ended up in Nashville, and while the band was traveling, in between times, I worked at a local computer store, just selling Macs and PCs and doing service. And it was one of those things where, I knew that there was something more, right? And so, not that there's anything wrong with retail sales, but I had gone through enough Black Fridays that I wanted to do something different. And so, after actually moving up to the manager of that store, I was like, there's got to be something else. And so I actually took a huge pay cut and just said, I'm going to go do help desk. There's got to be something else out there in the enterprise space that I don't know about. I don't even know what that is, but there's got to be something because my life can't be based around doing Black Friday sales. And so I took a pay cut and started working level 1 help desk. Did that for about a year and a half. And moved up through that organization to the point where I was actually kind of scouted by a local partner here in town. Never even actually made the jump from help desk to sysadmin. I went directly from help desk to basically advising people on what their architecture should be within their environment. And the reason for that is because I got involved with the VMUG, and Todd and I worked at the same place at the time, and said, "Hey, I want to start this VMUG thing. Do you want in?" And I said, "What is VMUG? What is virtualization? I don't know what these things are." But I dove in, and it was one of those things where if you are self-motivated and can be motivated within yourself and not rely on other people, you can do a lot of things. And so we did, and we created this event, and we built this local user group up from nothing, and then through those community interactions and relationships, I'm at my current job at an actual partner that's out on the floor today. So it's one of those things. If you are motivated to do it, there are people that want to help you do that. Our only ask is that you come to us and say, "I want to do this, and I am committed to not wasting your time to do this." And we love that. We want to help you step up, just like Todd helped me. I want to help the next guy. And so that's kind of my story, is that it's a checkered history of all different educations and driving an 18-wheeler and lots of different things, but it ended up with finding a community of IT professionals that want to better each other and see the entire community grow, and I grew with it.
It's interesting because it's interesting hearing you say it, but we were two lost Tier 1 admins walking around trying to get people to listen to us. Literally. Yeah. We traveled around the country trying to say, "Hey, Nashville VMUG is going to be huge."
You should
There's
come.
8 people that came to our meetings. 8 people that came to our meetings. You should come join. It's going to be amazing. You're going to miss out if you don't join us. You're like, "Shit, that's true." now there's 500 today. So but no, that's not to brag. It's just that we were just excited.
Yeah.
We didn't know where we would be. We just knew we wanted a group of people that were just as excited as us to gather around and do and get paid to do it. You don't get paid here, but what you put into it, you definitely get back. I mean, people are going to see that you're passionate about what you do, and it's interesting because how many people do I interview a day for partners or recruiters, or we do tech outs that we call. People call us and say, "Hey, who should I hire? What do you need? Well, what do you want to do? I mean, who do you want to talk to?" Justin's talking to a couple people now, but the one thing that all they know is they want. I had a guy call me the other day. I said, "Well, what do you want me?" He said, "I want a beast." How do you put that on a wreck? What's a beast? And I know what a beast is. It's Jake, it's Justin, it's Vince, it's Nick. I know what a beast is. But can you see that, right? And I sent this one guy to an interview, and the guy at the job called me. He said, "This guy's not qualified." I said, "You have no idea what you have in your office right now. If you don't hire him, you're dumb." And somebody did that for me many years ago. And they called him while I was sitting in the office at the interview. My mentor, he was the director of IT at MIT. Good reference to have, right? He called him on his cell phone and said, "Todd says he knows you, and he's looking for a job." And he said, "You're effing stupid if you don't hire him," and hung up the phone. So I did the same thing for somebody the other day. And that's a good way to pay it forward. To me, the beast is you know what a beast is. You've done it for 9 years, so you're going to work through it. Jake works through it. Justin works through it. Nick works through it. I'd like to hear one more. I think it was you're cutting out soon, right?
Yeah.
What quarter are you in? Or semester?
It's hard to say. Military. I'm ex-military, computer information specialist. So the military actually took a lot of my courses out for me. I think I really only have about 3 more courses. Well, after this next quarter, I have like 3 more courses, and I'm done. Well, 2 probably.
Awesome.
So.
What do you do?
Well, my degree is for a network systems administrator, but since I know virtualization is kind of, taken over my impending career path, that's kind of why I'm here. Is why I'm trying to get more into the VMUG and stuff like that. Since I know by the time I get out, my job's already gone. So I'm trying to get more into the virtualization for it. As far as what I'm doing when I get out, I'm hoping to be, I guess I'm hoping to be more into, well, enough into the VMUG, into the virtual machines and virtual servers and stuff like that, that I can actually, go forward doing a job, something like that.
What was your MLS?
25 Bravo, Computer Information Specialist.
So they just gave you something and say, here's the next thing.
Yeah, they did that a lot. They said, here, we're going to be starting to do this now, so...
That's virtualization.
Yeah.
Here's this thing. That's why you say there's a gap, right?
Yeah.
People said when I was doing system admin, I was racking and stacking OSs and storage. Here's the VMware. What the heck is this, man? First of all, it's going to take my job because now I don't need to rack and stack servers anymore, right?
Can I just butt in there?
Please.
About the whole taking the job. It's a common thing that you feel that the industry that's disrupting itself, right? The IT industry, there's all this change. No one is actually taking your job. You're losing your job because you're not keeping up with what's required in the industry. If you're going to pick a job in IT, you need to pick the fact that you need continuous education. It doesn't matter. I'm still learning. These guys are still learning. Everybody's still learning. Nothing is going to take your job. You'll just lose it because all of a sudden you won't have the skills for what the industry requires. So I get the fact that you're trying to get into this virtualization, thinking what you were trained for before was the traditional security and the virtualization security is coming. I implore you to keep going down that virtualization path because you're right. It's not going to take your job, but you won't have the skills required to do your job. Your job, the skills required for that job is continuously moving, so you need to make sure your education is doing the same.
So, my name's Scott Kennedy, and I'm with PassiveECP.com. And I'm from Chicago. I drove down here at the invitation of Kyle and the group to kind of witness this. And I just want to, if I can feed into this, one of the things that I do in Chicago, I work with a company up there, a training company, and they're retraining people. So there's people that, with this economy, people lose their jobs, sometimes from no fault of their own, and they're going through a federally funded program that come through. And we developed, they asked us to come in and develop an entry-level VMware class. And so we did. And I certify people on VCA, not just VCP, up in Chicago. And the reason they're doing it is because they have this program they come through. They get their CCNA, their ITIL, all those certifications they're putting through it. And these are guys that have 15 to 20 years of IT experience, just like you, that became irrelevant and they lost their jobs. They didn't keep up with their skills, so it's exactly right. And the reason we do the VMware training as a part of that program is because the employers will hire someone with a VMware certification before they hire anybody else but the other ones. And I have letters of recommendation from the school saying we are so, even though it's a VCA, when they're up against a candidate who doesn't have a VCA or a VCP, they'll hire the virtualization guy all day long because that's where you really are. This is where it's going.
I mean, that's just more proof right there, right? We hear it every day that the employers are just as confused as you are. More. Actually, more. I want a beast. What's a beast?
Yeah.
In my world, trust me, if you latch on to somebody now like Nick or me or Jig or Justin or Vince or anybody, and you just go for the ride. That's what I told him first. Just go along for the ride, man. And you'll learn just by listening, and you'll start to catch on that virtualization's here to stay. It's been here for quite a while. And network administration involved. I was going somewhere with the MLS. I was 12 Bravo, but they just kept throwing new stuff at me. Blow this up. Okay. And I like IT because they do the same thing. They just keep throwing new stuff at you. And I got to learn and evolve. And learn and evolve. And learn and evolve. And I feel like it's constant more and more. And the more you get into virtualization, the worse it's going to get. Because you're going to need to learn more. So no, it never ends. It's going to get harder than it is right now. Ask Vince. So
Might even end up breaking your leg.
you might. Break a leg. That can be funny because I did that too. We had the same path. But it's guys, stay involved. I mean, I wish we could talk for hours because there's underlying points that we're all trying to say, but it's it's a character. It takes a lot of guts to do that for 9 years, man. I've done it. So, but know that almost everybody around the table has worked pretty hard at what they're doing to get where we are, and we're trying. We're telling you, I want to pay it forward, but you're going to do all the work.
All right.
I can connect you to Nick. I can connect you to Jake. I can connect you to Scott. But show up, do the work, have fun.
Yes, most of them.
Have a lot of fun because we party harder than anybody in our industry. But we also work 10 times harder. So please, I'd like to hear one more, and I'm going to pick somebody if that's okay.
Look out.
You look scared. Stand up. Daniel. What's going on, Daniel? What are you in?
Third quarter, I think.
Okay. What's your curriculum you doing?
NSA.
Okay. Cool. What do you like about it?
I'm finding VMs really interesting. When I was in Lyle's class, ever since I've been in school and dealing with computers, he's the best mentor I've ever seen.
Roger Lyles was number 2 on my tier of men.
He's one on mine.
Yeah. Good.
Well, I mean, what I've learned from him has pretty much turned my life around. Because at first, I wanted to be a game designer or an animator. That backfired in 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
And then I wanted to try my hand at art. So I tried going to AI and then walked right back out the door. I didn't even go back in.
I was literally you 11 years ago. I did graphic design. I wanted to design for Blizzard. I was going to be the man.
No, I wanted to go to Valve in Seattle.
Nice, yes.
I wanted to go to them. I figured, okay, no, this isn't going to work. So I figured IT would work. So it's ITT, and I'm thinking, this fits with me. This could be my field. And I'm already getting things from career services about help desk. I heard what you said. I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. It's you've got to get your experience any way you can get it in. I did it for a year as a assistant.
Getting experience, and that's pretty much
You know what? That helped me figure out the quickest possible way to fix something, regardless if it was technical or not.
I would kind of interject that the things that we expect to get out of an experience is not what we get. So school is hopefully offending the ITT staff, but school is not about the education. It's about learning to problem solve, learning to troubleshoot, learning to keep cool under pressure.
Talk to the people next.
Work as a team.
Learning to work as a team, learning to endure. And same thing with help desk.
See, that's the big difference. Too. You just said the big difference between a university or union and what you guys are doing is the universities, they kind of go into it with this, they know what they need to do, the sense of entitlement, maybe if I can walk that line, but they know that it's the people around them. Typically when people like us go into a place like ITT, we're already struggling. We want to know what we're going to do, and we're not really accepted, I guess you would call it, the misfits, whatever you want to call it, right? But that's how I look at it. That's who I was. And then I found a group of people like, and then John Weil latched on to us because I wouldn't stop bugging him. Like, what's next for me? I have no idea. But you do, you know what's going on. You've been through it, and he did. I mean, he showed me the ropes, and I'm glad you said Mr. Lyles, because a lot of people go in there, look at him, and like, whoa, this guy's special. And he is. He really is. He is as special as they get. He's got a lot of heart. So stick with him, man.
I tell you, I want to say one thing. I want to point out Ms. Jenkins as well. She is one to really push with networking and and getting out and going to these functions,
Yeah.
meeting
Yeah.
with people, and it's a very important part of being in ITT Tech. You know, it really is. It's going to help you get further than.
When me and Kyle went out to ITT, I think we were all crying at the table when we realized they were actually going to let us come in and talk to you guys. Literally, me and Kyle went out there with a passion. We were like, there's no way they're going to tell us no. No way. We sat there, and the dean was like, I just don't get it. And Carolyn was like,
What's your aim?
Yeah, what are you trying to sell? Carolyn's like crying, what don't you get? You're trying to help me. When he said let's go.
You know, me and him are intense, right? Especially him. So it's like we're sitting across the table, and what are these two intense guys doing across? What are they getting out of this? And, well, our heart is around, you know, paying it forward. And you saw some of it. That's our Pay It Forward project. I went through a process of being certified as a coach. So coaching and mentoring has a meaning for me. So, and I work with some of you guys already. So it's
Yeah, this is, we could go on all day, but don't let it end here. And I told Vince the first time I met him, just don't let it end here. Keep going. Latch on to somebody. And when I mean latch on to them, make them work. If they say they're going to be a mentor, it's working, and it's working hard. So we just want to see you succeed. I'm not going to lie, I get a lot out of this. Watching Vince succeed, and Jake succeed, and Justin's going to succeed whether he likes it or not. That's what I get out of this. And you see guys like Nick and Scott, and they just want to pay it forward. You realize he travels with his family. He brought his family here to talk to you guys. He doesn't live in Nashville, so he really loves what we love, which is paying it forward. That's why people like him are here. So talk to him. Figure out what's next. And who gets a book? We'll let Jake pick the first one, and then Nick, you can pick one. Sure. So we got 2 books. And this is a good place to start.
yes, it is.
It is very good. I still have the book that he signed for me. Was it last year or the year before?
Chicago.
Chicago VMUG, yeah.
Yeah, it was 12 months ago.
Yeah, it was
Before
over.
this one came out, you would have the 5 months time. Sorry.
You want to talk to another passionate person, find Chris Wall.
Yeah, fine, Chris.
Chris, he runs the VMUG in Chicago.
He has a demo zone that everybody of you should be involved in because it's how you build your skills.
Yeah.
What methods do you use? He has I guess a video cast of his previous blog that I put on our Google Plus. That those are how you learn, and he kind of explains what methods he uses, like the Pomodoro method or Pomodoro.
Yeah, so it's very confusing, the Pomodoro method.
Yeah. I mean, and you think it's flaky, but that's how your mind works. And once you start getting into learning,
Let me get signed next time.
so anyway, also I wanted to cast a vision for you guys, is because I have Vince who has a desire to take it forward, right? He wants to get into what is the next college?
Mm-hmm.
What is the next? And I want everybody that is involved, this is a growing community. And it only grows when the younger ones in the community pay it forward and get involved and want to engage, right? And as we engage and as we grow sideways with more colleges coming online, because that's Todd and I's desire is to see more colleges involved, then the community is thriving and breathing and growing, and you have that mentality of paying it forward and actually engaging each other. And, next year I have a peer-to-peer VCP, that I'm working on with Scott. And nothing would make me feel more proud to have 40 VCPs in Nashville go through the cohort and actually peer.
How many are there?
In Nashville?
Yeah.
I know of maybe 15.
15 VCPs.
So, and building what I call it's called a community of practice. A lot of IBM and a lot of other tech companies use it, but it's peer-to-peer engagement and really problem solving together.
and saying, I'm not taking that mentality that I'm with company X and you're with company Y and I can't share knowledge. That's not the
Jake
way.
and I work for competing manufacturers.
Yeah.
You would know it.
And I worked with CSC, so we're,
To us,
big
the
part of the
community-
VMware.
The community is more important. When I tell my boss when I came on, I said, the VMUG, they said, is there anything that would cause a conflict of interest? Well, to me, no, but the VMUG comes first. I would quit my job before I left the VMUG. So, because to be honest, I wouldn't have got my job if it wasn't the VMUG. People approached us and said, what are you doing? You want a job? So, yeah, and I like to challenge like Jake and everybody too when it comes to paying it forward. I learned this thing called the joy tree the other day, and this old man, he's like 85. He's telling me this story. He's like, he loves what we're doing. He's 85. He all he does is watch people paying it forward and write stories about it. And he found out about us, and he says you need to challenge your leadership team. Instead of paying it forward once, pay it forward twice. He called it the joy tree, and the Y in you is the growth of the joy tree. That there's one that's you, and then at least that's his. And I'm gonna polish that up a little bit and make it better. But start paying it forward now. Come out, bring people with you, keep it going. We want to keep this going. So where's that one going?
Yours is first hand.
Right on.
Sean.
SAJWN.
And Sean, I'll
The only
challenge
correct way to
you
spell
to stay in touch with us. Get on Twitter if
Yeah.
you're not already.
I'm already on Twitter, and I'm following you at least.
Follow me.
I think I got you on LinkedIn too.
Mostly everyone's got their Twitter tag right here.
Okay.
If they don't, they should. If they don't, ask them.
And I'm also within our ITT Nashville VMUG group, and
I follow everything.
Yeah, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook and G+.
I would say maybe just one last thing too. Be cognizant of the fact that we are watching you guys all the time. Whether you know it or not, we're watching and we're looking for people. So be available. Be available.
On that note, I've got about 2 quarters left in my associates. I'm still debating whether or not to go immediately into a bachelor's or level up on a job, start working on some certifications, and then circle around for a bachelor's. But the next leader of this group, it might be someone who's going to, it may be someone like Sherry who may continue immediately on to a bachelor's. It might be someone who's currently in one of their earlier quarters, who's just thinking about getting involved, but might be ready to start being mentored to take the reins, or at least join the leadership team and help the continuity for the group. Once I leave, I'm interested in helping spread this to other schools, eventually other cities. I'd like to develop this into something that's turnkey and duplicatable. And so we would love, some of you to get involved. I love the fact that I've got a whole room full of students here that I haven't met yet. I'd love to meet you guys. I'd love to find out more about your stories and see who's interested in getting involved. It's very worthwhile.
We got to jump because there's another meeting, but take him up on his offer. I will. I might go back there.
We have a Google Plus where we post information like meetings and things. We also now have a bulletin board at school right outside Theory 10. You might have seen where it advertised for UserCon this meeting today. That is the ITT VMUG section of the bulletin board. So if you're ever looking like, are they having a meeting coming up or something like that, you might go and check there along with our Google Plus page.
I'm also looking for mobile actually things posted on the ITT website when we have events coming up as well. Also, Dave Delaney will be talking here during lunch. I highly suggest
there's building your brand, so you're marketing yourself, right? So that's his specialty, and he speaks all across the nation about that. So
some of the students are interested in purchasing the book. Is it on Amazon or?
There'll be other opportunities today.
all good books to sell.
Talk to the